Hello, in this presentation, we will carry out a simulation allowing us to prepare a buffer and then to stress it. Let me go ahead now and share with you the website which allows us to do this. And this is shared in our handout. Here it is. We have acids or bases over here, and then over here we have the salts. The buffer that we will prepare is at a pH of 4.00, and a suitable acid would be one which would have its pKa within plus or minus 4. So we will pick acetic acid, which is right over here, and we will pick its sodium salt, which will provide acetate ions. Now, let us go ahead and pick the appropriate concentrations and the appropriate volumes. So for each acetic acid, I will pick a concentration of 10 times 10 to the minus 1 molar. And for sodium acetate, I will pick a concentration of 10 times 10 to the minus 2 molar. Now, let us begin with a volume of 500 ml for sodium acetate and 100 ml for acetic acid. We will go ahead now and insert the probes which measure the temperature, which we will hold at 25 degrees centigrade, and we measure the pH now to be 4.44. We want a buffer at pH 4, and so I need to add more acid. So let me go ahead and, without changing anything else, add 25 ml of, okay, let's make it 50 ml. We will insert the probe, and you find that the pH is a little bit lower. That makes sense. Before we change the amount of the acid, we have to remove the probe, and what I have asked you to do is to go ahead and increase the amount of HCl in increments of 25 ml. So let us go ahead and pick this as the volume, insert the probe, and you find that the pH is now very close to 4. So by increasing the amount of acetic acid, we can go ahead and obtain a pH which is that of 4.00. Now let us go to the next part where we stress the buffer. But before I do that, let me just make sure that I have a pH of exactly 4.00. And I played around with this until I got this. So here we have the pH of 4.00 for our buffer. And now what we will do is we will go to part 2 by clicking on this button. It reminds us I need to remove the probe, which I will do. And then I will go to part 2, where we will go ahead and use these many moles, 10 times 10 to the minus 3 moles, or 10 millimoles. So let us pick our acid HCl and then see what happens to the buffer. And it turns out that the pH of the buffer only changes by a very small amount. If I want to add a certain amount of base, I will pick sodium hydroxide, still 10 times 10 to the minus 3 mole, insert the probe, and find that the pH changes by 0.1 units. So my buffer had a pH of 4, adding a certain amount of acid lowered the pH by roughly 0.1 units. Adding a corresponding amount of base increased the pH by 0.1 units, as it should. And so this then turns out to be a fun exercise, which I want you to carry out. And this is also described in your handout very nicely.